Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, not a problem.
Good
Hey,
deal.
Steve.
Hey, how'd your Cairo stuff go this weekend?
Ju- Fantastic. We had a great meeting. We had to get out a little early because, well, we're kind of all old in this ministry, and we lost one this week.
Oh
So
no.
far, we've lost three this year.
Yes, I started to
But
say
he's providing. He provided like six more in replacement of those three. So we're not hurting yet.
well, that's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So, um, all right, so it looks like we've got a couple of people watching the class on YouTube. And so as I try to get further and further away, I think I'm gonna start getting out of the Facebook business and start getting more into YouTube because it's you know the last two weeks I clicked the button to get onto YouTube and it fired right up, not a problem, no nothing. And so and sometimes with Facebook I try I don't know 10, 11, 12 times to get online and it just won't go. So,
Are those fireplace lights behind you?
are those what?
Are those fireplace lights behind you?
No. What do you mean fireplace?
They look like your lights are flickering behind you.
Oh no, no, no. That's a uh, ceiling fan
Ah, okay.
that's doing
All right.
something.
I've heard of those before.
Yeah, yeah, okay. That would be. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So how'd it go for you yesterday? All right, good.
Yeah, it was good. We had a good service and we had I think we had 81 in attendance yesterday.
All right,
And
that's
so
good.
that was good.
Anything done with the air conditioner?
No, sir.
Okay. That
Other
was
than
that was a question that I was expecting the same answer on, but
well, I other than the fact that I'm starting a whole lot more in earnest of looking for some place to replace where we're at.
yeah. Well, here's what I'll let you know. If they do have to replace that air conditioner, they're going
Yeah.
to have to rent a crane.
Oh yeah, they know that.
Yeah, the
They know
contractor's
that.
going to have to put that up there with a crane.
Yep.
Yeah.
And but you know what? They rejected my offer to help them out with that thing, and so it's just whatever.
Well,
But yeah,
their loss.
yeah, this morning I had the privilege of teaching a dual class, a double class over at St. Peter's um, church this morning. I got a friend who I worked with in the oil patch for many years, and he's a member there. And so he invites me every once in a while, once a quarter or so, to go over and teach something. And he invited me. Well, when the other senior class, um, and I'm talking about seasoned citizens,
Yeah.
they, they um, when they heard that I was coming, well, they asked if they could come into the class, and so we had standing room only in that. Yeah, every seat was taken, and
Wow.
so in one way, it was probably a good thing that some of them were restricted to wheelchairs. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had a place to sit down. But
Uh-huh.
it's a very, very, very senior class. Okay, so
So
um,
you're popular over there, huh?
well, yeah, kind of. I mean, and I when I
That's
walked
good.
in, I saw several people that said, "Hey, there you are. I heard that you were going to be teaching today." And these are people that are not even associated with the classroom. They're just part of the staff at the church. And
Yeah,
so somehow or another, the word got out. So,
that's great.
but
Fantastic.
it was a good deal. I taught a class on the ancient Jewish, the Jewish sages, starting with Shammai and Hillel, and their impact. And then I brought in several others, Ramban and Rashi and so on and so forth, several of them, and talked about them and their impact on Jewish and Christian, Judeo-Christian relationships today, how the things that went on 1,000 or 2,000 years ago impacted how we get along today.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of challenging to get all of that done in 40 minutes. But
Well, that's
um,
a short class.
yeah, it is a short class. These are older folks now. See,
They
they
can't
they
hold it as long, right?
they couldn't hold it that long. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so they had, in fact, probably when we start out with no seats, and then as we went on, it kept dwindling. People, being wheeled out or pushing their little strollers or whatever those things are
Yeah.
out to leave the class. So I don't know. I was just wondering if maybe something I had said offended them. So, but no, not really.
Not,
But it
yeah, I
was
was
a
going
good.
to say nothing wrong with, telling them about prophets and teachers and anything like that about the Jewish state.
Yeah.
'Cause,
No, it was a real good class.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
should have been.
Nobody
Yeah,
was offended by anything. It was all real good. So, and I enjoyed doing that because it opens up some things. They really don't have a clue as to what Messianic Judaism is.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so,
A lot of Christians don't. Yeah,
yeah. So anyway, well, I'll tell you what, it's time to get started. We got a minion here, and okay, can you hear the noise in the background on my side?
I cannot.
Okay, well that's good because um, the TV's going in there. Pat's got all the dogs corralled. Otherwise, they would about halfway through here, they lose their attention span and they start barking in here. So she always takes them out. All right, let's go ahead and begin. I want to welcome anyone here. We had a couple of folks watching our class on YouTube, and hopefully they will stick around with us. And if for people that are on the YouTube and have not found us before, my name is Steve Sheik. I'm the rabbi at Tree of Life Messianic Congregation in Houston, and our web page, of course, is treeoflifehouston.com. And so, if you would, let's just begin with the blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lasoch b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, sanctifies us with his commandments and commands us to engross ourselves in words of Torah. Okay, so today we're finishing off the second chapter of Haggai, and um, Rudy had asked me yesterday when we were going to get into something more than just one chapter or two chapter um, books, like the get into something meaty. Well, uh, we're going to go into Zechariah as soon as we get done with this one, and I think that's like 14 chapters. So that one ought to rev you up there, Rudy. We'll be in 14 chapters of Zechariah, and um, so just always trying to please there, bud. All right, so here we are at this, on our timeline, and of course, you got Zechariah here, and that's why we're going into that. And um, okay, so let's see. I wanted to go ahead and get started. I left this chronological uh, timeline thing on there in case somebody wanted to go back and look at. The time frame as to when all of this stuff was taking place. So, um, and let's go ahead and begin. Are there any questions, comments, or questions before we get started? Because I want to leave that open for anybody. Okay, let's look at verses 1 and 2 then. On the 21st day of the seventh month, the word of Adonai came through Haggai the prophet. Speak now to Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and Joshua, son of Jehozadak, Kohen Gadol, or high priest, and to the remnant of the people. And so um, here we see that the Lord has given another message to Haggai for his audience there in Judah and in Jerusalem. And it was a message of encouragement, and it happened about a month after the last message that he had done, and it turned out to be on the 21st day of the seventh month of Tishri, and that would equate to October 17th of the year 520 BCE. All right, so and we see there that this was on that year, that was the last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. And so Tishri was a month of celebrations for the Israelites. And, they had Rosh Hashanah, just like we're right in the middle of all of that today. Rosh Hashanah, and then Day of Atonement 10 days later, and then 5 days after that started the Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths, Sukkot, and that lasted 8 days. So the uh, so that's where we are on this, and this date is important because 400 years earlier, Solomon had dedicated the temple during Sukkot. His first, the Solomon's temple, was dedicated during Sukkot. And you'll remember that during the war against the Greeks, where the Maccabee family uh, started a revolt against the Greeks, and they finally kicked the Greeks out of Israel, or the Greeks just got tired of getting defeated every time they went against this ragtag Israeli army. They left Israel, left them alone, and they cleaned up the temple and rededicated the temple. And that was they wanted to do it during Sukkot, but alas, they couldn't get it all done, and so they did it later on, and that's what we have Hanukkah. And so I think I mentioned it later on in our lesson today. So the audience that he's talking to here was the same audience that he had in the first couple of verses of chapter 1. It was Zerubbabel, the governor, Joshua, the high priest, and then the entire Judean population, which that comparative to what was there before was kind of a small group of folks. But anyway, the remnant, and it's only like 20% of what actually went out into the exile. So verse 3 says, "Who remains among you who saw the house in its former glory? How do you see it now? Does it not seem as nothing in comparison in your eyes?" So here, I think through Haggai, the Lord is bringing up an unfavorable comparison that these people are looking at that. Now, these would be old people, okay? They would have to be very, very old if they could remember the temple before, and now here it is 60 some years later, at 66 years later at least. And uh, I guess they were just, you know, mully grubbing and, comparing and criticizing, and you know the kind that they all have criticisms, but they don't have any solutions. And so I think that's what these people were all about. So Haggai, he asked three questions of them, and he says, "Who of you, who in this remnant saw this house in its former glory? What does it look? How does it look to you now? And does it seem like it's nothing?" And so they were comparing it back to, of course, Solomon's temple, and these questions were essentially rhetorical, but it was the reasoning was it to cause the people to come
Right,
on.
that's 600 by 2033, but even now, the dozens and dozens of languages that it's being translated. It's so amazing, and I'm just so grateful to you for helping us make that happen. I'm grateful to come and see for making that happen. All right,
Okay,
now,
hang on.
after what I'm about to show you, this is my conversation.
Okay. All right. Let me go ahead and push the button here for muting everybody. And yeah, if you need to say something, just unmute yourself. Didn't know where that was coming from for a second. All right, but he's asking, okay, who has seen this? And so they were comparing what they're doing now, trying to piece together the temple again with broken stones in some cases, or just whatever was still around, and what had not been burned out. And so it was a mess. It was like trying to reconstruct an old building with the original timbers and original stones and so forth. So did it fit exactly? Maybe not. It just didn't look all that good. And the people were standing around and said, "Yeah, well, I remember back in the day, it looked a whole lot better than what you young whippersnappers are doing today." And so that doesn't help anybody, but it seemed like that's what they were doing. And so the Lord says, "Yeah, what do you see? What do you see here?" And they had to kind of admit that, "Oh yeah, it's you're right. It's not as good as Solomon, but that's it is what it is." And so we went to then verses 4 and 5. It says, "But now Zerubbabel and he tells him, but now Zerubbabel, Chazak." It is a declaration of Adonai, and be strong, Joshua son of Jehozadak, Kohen Gadol, and all the people of the land. Chazak. It's a declaration of Adonai, and work, for I am with you. It's a declaration of Adonai Svaot. And so, according to the word I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, my Ruach is standing in your midst. Do not fear. So he's telling them, okay, to have courage and man up. I mean, we would say something like that, man up or be strong. And that's what he's telling them, be strong, folks. But then he tells them, like, all three people in the audience, the Zerubbabel, the high priest Joshua, and then all of the people. He's telling them, be strong, have courage. And then he tells them something that probably gets overlooked all the time: have courage and work. He's telling them, okay, so you don't just have courage and not be afraid of anything, but do something with it. Get to work. And he says, because I'm with you. And I've preached on that a couple of times just recently in the last couple of weeks, that I am with you all the way. And so and he said, look, what I promised you in coming out of Egypt, I'm still standing there with you. He had the the pillar of fire and the column of smoke to lead them throughout the entire area of the wilderness. But now this would be 1,000 years later, something like that, because or 800 or 900 years later, and so the Lord is telling them, "Look, I'm with you, just like I was with the fire and the cloud. I am with you here in your midst." So the Lord encouraged Zerubbabel, the people, and Joshua, that he would be with them. That David had given the same charge and promise to Solomon regarding building of the first temple. You find that in First Chronicles 28. And um, you know, comparisons going back to what was uh, can be kind of discouraging when you're doing God's work. And so people involved in God's work need to remind themselves that He's with us. I've heard people talking about, growing up, they talk about, well, when we were young, the Spirit of the Lord was on us much more than it is today. And I used to think, well, God doesn't change, His Spirit doesn't change. So what did change? And it had to be the person, and why would it be different today? And so making comparisons to what it was back in the old days, and of course those of us, I think the three of us that are here from the Coast Guard Academy, the saying was, well, when I was a swab, or when I was this, or when and so we always compare our own experiences with what these youngsters are going through now. And it wasn't like that when we were there, and I think maybe it was, but that's one of the things that we say. So God had told him, okay, I'm going to keep this covenant. And so it doesn't matter how large or small the work is, you need to remember, be strong. And he was going to stay with them, just like he did in the wilderness, going all throughout the wilderness. Even though it was a punishment time, God was still with them every step of the way. In fact, he led them. His Spirit was ahead of them all the way through. So, looking at the next couple of verses. For thus says Adonai Svaot, in just a little while I will shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land, and I will shake all the nations. Now that's just the first part of verse 7. So here we can see that, okay, the Lord has told them to have courage, and their confidence, the confidence that they could have, is basically because God had demonstrated all of the things he could do for them in the past. Look at their experience coming out of Egypt, and the Red Sea, and then Mount Sinai, where God is up there on top of the mountain, and there's fire and there's smoke, and then the Ten Commandments, and when they had the golden calf. Well, you remember that did not end well for a bunch of folks. But they saw that the earth just came up, swallowed them up, and they were gone. And other things, when the rebellion against Moses, and how again the earth swallowed them up and they were gone. And so they could understand, some of these things that God had done, and it was powerful. They were still, a lot of them still alive. They could see that because they were young folks at the time. And so we see that, shaking the heavens and the earth, to include, the sea and the dry land, that takes an enormous literal earthquake. And so they were used to that sort of thing. They had seen it before. And so at that's why they could have confidence when God says, okay, have courage. Let's man up. We're going to go into this. We're going to get this temple built. And so you'll note that also during this time frame, there were quite a few earthquakes that were devastating in the Persian Empire. So there were things that were going on, and like God had said, I'm going to do this, and so that's what He did. So if you go back to Hebrews, the writer of Hebrews, he quoted this very verse in Hebrews 12:26, and he also added that we who are in Messiah Yeshua have an unshakable kingdom that will endure any of the cosmic earthquakes, anything that happens that the Lord does. Well, we can endure this because God takes care of His own, just like He did in Egypt, where all the plagues and everything. Remember that the Israelites did not suffer the plagues that the Egyptians did. When it was dark in Egypt, just right across the street where the Israelites lived, it was not dark. And so how God did that, I don't know, but it must have been awesome. So, and of course, the writer of Hebrews sees Haggai's language as um, a contrast between the, I would say, the transitory nature of the old way of doing things, because he talked about how that the old covenant was aging and dying, and it was in the process of going out the door, and then where he compared that with the new covenant in Messiah Yeshua, which is going to be an eternal kingdom and is going to last forever. And so, but he's telling them, I'm going to do all these things, and not only that, I'm going to shake all the nations too. I'm just going to shake them all up. And so then we go to the second verse, or second half of that verse, and it says, the treasures of all the nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory, says Adonai Svaot. The silver is mine, the gold is mine. It's a declaration of Adonai Svaot. Okay, so the Lord's return, I think this points toward it definitely points toward the millennial period and the second coming of the Messiah, that his return is going to upset political and governmental structures all over the world. And we know that at the Battle of Armageddon, the armies that are arrayed against Israel are going to be destroyed, and the leadership of these nations that are against Israel are going to be, if not destroyed, then just cowed into submission. And so as a result, we're going to see the wealth of the world flowing toward Israel during the millennial period. And the Lord said, well, hey, the gold is mine, the silver is mine already. We're just repurposing it. We're just taking it from these guys over here, and I'm just going to let y'all have it over here. And so in that verse going up there, let's see, where is it? The treasures of all of the nations will come, and I will fill this house with glory. Now, there, I think it's in the King James Version, it says, the desire of all nations will come. And so that's a little confusing. And so I think I like I don't know, the sometimes they say, well, the thought seems to be that the lack of adornment in Zerubbabel's temple would be more than compensated for by the rich treasures that are going to be brought into brought in the day when the millennial temple is built. And that's one view of it. And another is that this desire that's in the King James Version could be a personal reference, and it could be a messianic prophecy. And so there's just all sorts of ideas as to what it meant. And the earliest days of the messianic, or the Nazarenes, let's say the early church, the first couple of centuries. The Christian interpreters, they looked at that as being a messianic prophecy, or a passage that refers to the Messiah. So, and the Lord also promised to fill the temple, this house, he says, with glory. And so the temple that is in view here it has to be the millennial temple rather than this second restoration temple, because if you remember that, when the tabernacle was dedicated, the power of the Lord came down, and the priests and Moses and Aaron, they couldn't even stand up because the power of God was so, the glory of God, the kavod, the heaviness of God was so weighed upon them, they couldn't even get up. Well, guess what? The same thing happened then 500 years later with the dedication of Solomon's temple, that the power of God was so strong that they couldn't even get up and minister. Well, guess what? It did not happen during the restoration of the second temple. For one thing, the Ark of the Covenant was gone. It was missing. It was no longer in the temple. We don't know what happened to it, where it's at. And some people have ideas that, oh, it's buried under the Temple Mount or what. I don't know. And I can't really argue one way or the other about it. But anyway, that's some of the ideas. And shaking the kingdoms, it was like it would induce the nations to present their treasures to God as gifts for the glorification of this house. Now, there's also you remember that the Bible says that in the millennial period during Sukkot, that all the nations have to come with a gift to the Lord and fall down and worship and acknowledge him as the ruler of the world. If they don't do that, then their nation will it'll suffer drought. Well, what that means is that they will have their economy is going to go in the tank for that year until they can come back the next year. That's what happens when somebody does not obey God and doesn't worship him in this millennial period. Okay, so any comments or questions on that so far?
Just got a quick comment on the reference in Hebrews 12, where it talks about, the end of that section is a kind of a classic Kal Vachomer rabbinic construct. It's like, and what Kal means light, Chomer means heavy, and what it is, you see this in Hebrew exposition sometimes, where it's as saying that if this is such the case here, how much more is it here? That's why it says, where it says, see to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, that's the light part, right? How much more how much less shall we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? So it's saying, so we got to be careful, and you see that in this section because it talks about you haven't come to a tangible mountain. You haven't come to a mountain that can be touched. This is, this supersedes the earthly one. The earthly one was terrifying in the way and how it was, but this one is actually even greater. It's even more awesome because it's not only am I going to shake the earth, I'm going to shake heaven. So this is talking about a greater responsibility. It's not like you have not come to mount, desert mountain. We sing like it's okay. Like now we're everything's party hardy time. It's not really saying that. It's saying, listen, that was if you thought that was awesome, the reality of the heavenly Jerusalem is even more awesome. And our accountability is not less. Our accountability is greater. So it's a pretty outstanding section of scripture.
Yep. Thanks for that. Okay, verse 9. The glory of this latter house will be greater than the former, says Adonai Sfot. In this place I will grant shalom. It is a declaration of Adonai Sfot. Okay, so even though the present temple was going to be less glorious than, say, Solomon's temple, the Lord promised that the latter glory of the temple would be greater than the former. So he said he was going to bring peace to the site of the temple, namely to Jerusalem. And you see that in Isaiah 60, Joel 3, Micah 5. So none of these things have happened yet. Okay. And so the fulfillment of this by necessity has to be later on I'd say in the millennial period. And lasting peace will only come when Messiah returns to rule and reign. And so Yeshua's adornment of the second temple, the second temple, even with all of Herod's upgrades and so forth, and it was great. I mean, there was gold everywhere, and it was just something else. That's not going to be anything like what will be the millennial temple, because again, it's going to be a temple made not made with hands, and Messiah is going to be ruling and reigning from the Holy of Holies. It's going to be just an awesome thing. So we really can't imagine what it's going to be like and the glory of the place. And it may be one of those cases where the glory of the Lord is so great that people can only go so far, and they're just not physically able to go any further because they can't penetrate the glory of God. And boy, what an experience that would be if we could experience that and get that close to the glory of the Lord. I'm kind of looking forward to doing that, and I think when the Messiah comes, I won't have any problem getting a visa to get into Israel. So let's go ahead with verse 10. On the 24th day of the 9th month in the second year of Darius, the word of Adonai came to Haggai the prophet. All right, so here we go. We're dating again, and so this date kind of coincides, like I'd said before, with the dedication of the temple after the defeat of the Seleucids, Antiochus Epiphanes. And so they wanted to get it all done for Sukkot, because that's when the temple was dedicated, but they couldn't do it, so it came a month or so later on. And during this time frame that Haggai is talking about here, between his messages, that's when Zechariah began his ministry in Jerusalem. So, all right. So let's see. Yeah, that's just what I said. It just got through saying, and sometimes I forget to roll the scroll here. So let's go ahead with verse 11 through 13. Thus says Adonai Svaot, ask now the Kohanim for a ruling. If a person carries a consecrated meat in the corner of his garment, and with his corner he touches bread, stew, wine, oil, or any food, will it become holy too? Then the Kohanim answered and said, no. So Haggai said, if one is unclean by contact with a corpse, if he touches any of these things, do they become unclean? And the Kohanim answered, yes, it does. It does become unclean. So the Lord instructed Haggai to request a ruling from the priest. Now, of course, the priests were the official arbiters of Mosaic law. And so this is one of those cases where they're asking a question about ceremonial defilement. And so it's kind of interesting how this all plays out. The question is, if someone carries consecrated food in his garment and touches other food of any kind with that garment, will the food become holy? Holy meat was set apart. It was meat that was set apart for a particular sacrificial purpose. And the priest could, it was brought into the temple, and they burned it on the altar, and then the only time that they burned up everything was with the olah, the burnt offering. But all the other offerings, they cut off a piece of the offering and put it on the altar and burned it up. But the rest of it, the rest of the carcass, went to the priests for them to eat. The priests that were on duty for that particular 2-week time span. And so they could take this meat and go to a various part of the temple and to sit down and have their lunch. Well, if they touched something on the way, happened to bump up against some kind of a pots or pans or something like that is used in the temple grounds, does that make them holy now and sanctified and separated? And the answer was no, it doesn't. That holiness is not transmitted to something else just because it becomes holy. Now, but the other side of it, so could uncleanness be transmitted to make other things unclean? So if they took something that was, say a guy, okay, the question was, okay, you've touched a corpse, somebody died in your house and you had to take care of them, and so now you're unclean. And if you go and touch certain things in your unclean state or your unfit state, then what happens to that thing that you're touching? Well, it becomes unfit until you yourself are ritually pure. Then ritually fit. Then you can come and wash the things up or boil them or whatever it takes for that kind of object. And so it was not a both way. A holy object cannot make an unholy object holy, but an unclean or an unholy object, say, let's say unclean, because that's a better definition. An unclean object can definitely transmit that uncleanness to a fit, clean object. All right. And so I was reading through some comments. The Mosaic Law taught that moral uncleanness can be transmitted, but moral cleanness cannot be. And so, all of you know that I like to read or listen to J. Vernon McGee because he just got that old gruff voice, and he's just fun to listen to. And if you ever want some entertaining Bible reading and Bible commentary, look up J. Vernon McGee. And he's been dead for years, but of course his recordings live on. And he said, "Friend, you can swim in holy water, and it won't make you holy." And he said another one. He said, "Trying to make yourself acceptable with God through ceremonies and all that sort of thing is like pouring a gallon of Chanel #5 on a pile of fertilizer out in the barnyard." Well, we know what kind of fertilizer he's talking about there. In an effort to make it clean and fragrant, my friend, it won't work. And so he was that kind of down home, country humor. I enjoy. Carmen.
You can hear him on 105.7 KHCB, and I believe he's on daily. Maybe it's at 5 in the morning, but he's on. That at certain times you have to look at their schedule. But yeah, I listen to him too. He's good. Yeah.
Okay, and now you're telling me, Carmen, that you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to listen to the radio?
It comes on automatically. Yes, I do. I listen to
my.
scriptures on the radio, and then I do my Bible study. Yeah.
Oh, 5 o'clock in the morning wouldn't do me any
Well,
good.
by then it's 6 o'clock, and I fed my dogs and did whatever.
There you go. There you go. All right. No, for me, if I want to listen to J. Vernon McGee, I just find him online someplace, and his organization still has a website, and you can get on there and listen to him at your leisure. So, but anyway, the point is that the disobedience of Israel, both northern tribes and the southern tribes, had rendered all of their works unprofitable before God. They were the works were just unclean. So that's what they're trying to get across here. Then Haggai answered and said, "So it is with this people. So is this nation before me. It is a declaration of Adonai, and so is every work of their hands. What they were offering there was unclean." So he applied this to the people of Judah and said that their disobedience renders even sacrificial worship unacceptable. And this defilement of the nation of Israel probably looked back to the period before the temple rebuilding began, and because of the defilement, it contrasts with the changed position that they are at this point, because he says from this day on. And so if we go on to and it's implied there that the Judeans could not assume that because they were helping rebuild the temple that somehow made them holy, or it brought onto them some kind of holiness. It just doesn't work that way. All right, verses 15 to 17. What time have we got? Okay. But now set your heart back from this day onward, before stone was set upon stone in the temple of Adonai. How were things? When one comes to a grain heap of 20 measures, there were only 10. When one came to the wine vat to draw 50 measures, there were only 20. I struck you with blight and with mildew and with hail, every work of your hands, so you were nothing to me. It is a declaration of Adonai. So what does all that mean? So what we see here that Haggai called the people to remember the not too long ago. I mean, it was just months ago, their previous economic disaster that came because they disobeyed by not rebuilding the temple. Remember, it was 16 years there that they didn't rebuild the temple, and so finally they sent Haggai, and he fired them up, stirred them up, and they started rebuilding the temple. So during that time frame, the economy of Israel, or of Judah actually, was the pits. It just they said um, they would go and try to get something that, okay, we're going to go get a 5-gallon bucket of grain. Well, guess what? Okay, there's only half of that 5-gallon bucket was even fit to eat. Or if they went to get a I would say, what would you say, not a bottle of wine, but a cask of wine, and or you go and get so many bottles of wine, and so, but actually, out of 50, or what is it, where it says you had 50, well, then the wine was reduced 60%. So basically, what it was saying is that, where you expected this in your crops, and it was that's, you plant this so much, and then this is what you expect to get, but you didn't. You got it. You were damaged. Your crops were damaged, and the Lord says, "I did that to you because you were disobedient." And so, but from this day forward, He's sending the message that if you obey me, get back to work, build this temple, you will I'll restore your finances to you. And uh he's telling them, don't fall back into what your ancestors did and turning your back on doing what's right, because it will not end well for you. All right, so verse 18 and 19. Now set your heart back from this day on, from the 24th day of the 9th month, since the day of the temple of Adonai was founded. Set your heart. Is there any seed in the storehouse? Also the vine, the fig tree, the pomegranate, and the olive oil, are they still bearing fruit? From this day on, I am going to bless you. So at this point, that God had, he'd talked about the chastening that he had put on Israel, the discipline on them. Haggai was urging the people to remember these things, and the renewed temple construction, and do that, and the blessings are then going to flow. And so this, and like I said, this was just months before that. So they had, and they were going to be in the hurt locker for a while, because they didn't have anything to fall back on. They, their seed was bad, their grapes or olives, they didn't have the luxuries like figs and pomegranates. So they had to be very careful about what they're doing. Don't forget that you have to do what the Lord tells you to do. And if you will do that, then you'll be blessed. All right. So then the word of Adonai came a second time to Haggai on the 24th day, same day as before, but the second word or second message came to him. Say to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, I am going to shake the heavens and earth. Okay, he said that now. This is the third time. And I will overturn the throne of kingdoms and destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the nations. I will overturn the chariot and its riders, so the horses and their riders will fall, each by the sword of his brother. So here the Lord is telling Zerubbabel that he's going to start shaking things up, and he's speaking directly to Zerubbabel. So not the priest and not the remnant. He's talking to him. So here, I think we can look at the Lord is right to the point of declaring, okay, Zerubbabel, you're my man of the hour. Okay. And so that's kind of what we'll see here. Verse 23. On that day, it is the declaration of Adonai Svaot that I will take you, Zerubbabel, son of Shealtiel, my servant. It is a declaration of Adonai, and I will set you like a signet ring, for I have chosen you. It is a declaration of Adonai Svaot. So there's three facts that are prominent here. The Lord will fulfill his prophecy on the future day of Gentile judgment. And, it's just not it hadn't happened to that extent yet. It's going to be in the millennial period. The Lord will make Zerubbabel and he says, my signet ring. And then the third thing, the Lord has chosen Zerubbabel as the channel of the Davidic line. And therefore he would be representative or typical type of the Messiah. And so anyway, the signet ring is important because and I don't know if I'm going to I'm trying to hurry up here because I want Warren to have a chance to go through his article here. God had earlier said that Jehoiakim, Zerubbabel's grandfather, if he were a signet ring, I'd take that thing off and I'd give it to Nebuchadnezzar because I'm done with you. And so now the Lord is kind of turning that around. It says, Zerubbabel, you are my signet ring. I'm going to give you my signet ring. So he's reversing the curse that he had put on his grandfather. So I think that is significant. And so the last words in Haggai's book here is the Lord Almighty. And so he's just calling the people now to be faithful in the task that he had given them. All right, so now I hope that everyone had a chance to read Warren's article on Zerubbabel and the signet ring. And so can you give us the Cliff Notes version of that, Warren? Go ahead.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's basically there's been an argument amongst the anti-missionaries that Jesus, Yeshua, could not be the Messiah because when God pronounced the curse upon Jeconiah, if you put on his line, said that none of his descendants, no one of his descendants would ever be in a position of authority in God's house. But we know that God relents throughout Scripture. He's relented and changed his mind. Moses had to actually intercede to prevent God from destroying Israel, and we see other places in Scripture. I think Psalm 69 and other places where it talks about God let them be blinded and forever cut off. But then we see in Romans 11, where all Israel shall be saved. So God does throughout Scripture. You see where he relents and changes his mind. And so in this incident of the signet ring, where Jeconiah is cursed, and his line is cursed. And God uses this symbology of the signet ring to illustrate that. Here we see God saying that Zerubbabel, I'm taking you as my signet ring. And it's interesting. There's an interesting midrash, rabbinic midrash, that says that the Messiah must come through the line of Zerubbabel. So here we go from the place of having a curse placed upon that channel of the Davidic line to now being reinstated, and actually declaration that Messiah must come through that line. And of course, Yeshua is a descendant of Zerubbabel. So,
So, question, Warren.
It's like
Could
it's not over until it's over with God. That's I guess that's the
That's a good way of putting it.
moral.
Okay, Carmen had a question.
so when you say God changed his mind, could it, and they had a curse on them or him, could he have just decided the punishment was enough? And so this is the end of.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Of course, you got to realize that God, being God, sees the end from the beginning. So nothing ever took him by surprise.
Right.
It's not like, okay, it's not like he's
Right.
in the corner. Okay, what am I going to do? God knows what he's going to do. He pronounces judgment, but he also uses
Lifted it.
he also uses judgment and as redemptive.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
All you have to do is look at the message to the city of Nineveh, where he said he's going to destroy it, just cut it off. And of course, then Jonah goes up there and preaches to them, and they says, "Oh my!" And they have a total turnaround of their attitudes and so forth. And so God said, "Okay, so I'm not going to destroy this generation. I'll wait a while." And that's the case. So did God change? No, he's all the same, but I think he allows certain things for us to change.
And of course, we see where
Yes, yeah.
even in Haggai, where God's chastisement is redemptive. And the people, in the beginning of chapter 2, we see the people of God saying, well, this temple doesn't look anything like what the first one was. I mean, because they're looking back with natural eyes, looking back, oh, geez, it's not the same. And the Lord says towards the end of the temple, have you noticed the fact that all the work of your hands has been like producing nothing? Have you noticed how the grain hasn't been coming? Have you noticed why you haven't been getting the oil or the wine or all this stuff? You only get like gleanings. It's because you guys screwed up, and but now as you return to me, with all your heart and soul and strength, now I'm going to bless you. From this time on, you will see prosperity. From this time on, you will see productive work taking place.
So he didn't change his mind. They became obedient, is what you just said, right?
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that God, he knew he's going to chastise them.
Yes.
And he just the way he chastises us sometimes, and we don't see the end. It doesn't feel necessarily redemptive to us when we're going through it, but it brings about the peaceable fruit of righteousness.
Amen.
So God, but so God sees the end from the beginning, and he looks at us with the eyes of faith. He, even through our schmutz, even through our junk and everything else, and all the mess, because God knows we're not perfect, and we certainly know we're not perfect, but he sees us with the eyes of faith, and what he's bringing us into, and how we're going, and what we're becoming as he works in us. So, uh, yeah. So we will be without spot or wrinkle. That's the goal.
Good deal.
So
All right. Well, thank you for that, Warren. And it was a very well written article, and I've saved it because it's uh, in my archive of stuff. And plus, I sent it out to everybody too, so that they could read it. Now, next week we will begin with Zechariah, and I think that's going to be a really good study. And then, just for our own folks, remember Wednesday night is Yom Kippur, and that starts at 7 o'clock. And so, and then the next morning, Thursday morning, we'll also have uh, a service. So anyway, that's where we're at. And any other comments or questions that someone might have on the lesson tonight?
well, I just want to say one thing about Yom Kippur, and just hoping that everybody has a meaningful time. That, I mean, the mitzvah is really to afflict their souls, and and you can go to a lot of just um, Jewish synagogues that where people maybe have gone without eating, but they haven't come close to afflicting their souls. So, I mean, anybody can skip a meal, but the idea is is that we recognize our need for salvation. And the very interesting fact is the fact that, see, the year of Jubilee doesn't start on Rosh Hashanah. We think like, okay, Rosh Hashanah, New Year, right? Well, no. The year of Jubilee begins with that long trumpet blast at the end of Yom Kippur. And how meaningful is that? Because you cannot experience Jubilee without atonement.
There you go.
If your sins aren't covered, how can you really enter into Jubilee? And so, what a beautiful picture that is.
Yep, sure enough. All right, thanks for that. That's a good illustration.
Thank you.
All right. So, guys, just be safe out there. I was working on my sermon for next week, and it's on the upside down generation, coming from Deuteronomy 32:20. And so just Moses is just describing, he could be describing what's on the front pages of Fox News today about the upside down generation. So anyway, be safe out there. Keep aware of where you are at, and what's all around you. And just we'll see you, Bezrat Hashem, Lord willing, we'll see you on Wednesday evening and Thursday morning, and then next Shabbat. So, all right. So good night, Lila Tov, Shavua Tov.
Chag Sameach.
Okay, we'll see you guys.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Good to see you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Rabbi.
Okay, you're welcome. Hey, Joe, I missed Friday
Was
because
that my fault? Was that my fault?
no. We had a glitch in our preparation for Yom Kippur. the lady that was going to sing Kol Nidre, has bad, what do you call it,
Vo-
abscess or
yeah,
something in her
vocal cord.
jaw.
Yeah, vocal
And
cord or abscess. Yeah.
yeah, so she has to get a root canal, but in the meantime, she's in a lot of pain, and so she just said, "I cannot, I just can't sing um, sing the Kol Nidre." And you know, I mean, poor poor gal, she'd been practicing for this for months, you know, and
Uh,
so I really feel sorry for her, but then that required me to do some scrambling to
yeah.
get it back on the schedule. So I had to make a trip into Houston or into Sealy and get the computer and the programs and all that kind of stuff fixed. And I didn't know about any of that until about 9 o'clock that morning. And
Morning.
so
Yeah. So we prayed for
it's
you, brother. We prayed for you. We knew you were up to your eyeballs in preparation.
Well, that's what it was. I mean, it was definitely trying to get everything wound up for our Yom Kippur. But I will tell you that last week when we did our Rosh Hashanah,
Uh huh.
I grossly um, underestimated the
Estimated.
amount of
Yeah.
people that were going to show up.
Oh, I know what's next. Everybody
And
wanted to blow the shofar.
well, yeah, because that's what we do. I mean,